Good morning. Just
of the Atlanta Black Chambers, the Chamber of the Year.
Atlanta is rocking. Go Global Conference is doing the things, eh?
And I think the most incredible thing to take actually home is the Black excellence.
So kudos to GOC for a job well done. I think this is just the beginning of greater and better things to come.
There is a black business.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Power Hour, where the hour shall pass, but the power continues. Today we've got a real special guest, a mentor, a friend, a brother, a member of the Atlanta Black Chamber. Just really honored to have this guest to the Power Hour today. We're gonna get started, but I want to do some housekeeping while you're here. Please keep those microphones on mute. Please, if you know somebody should be here and they're not here, just tap them and let them know that we are live. The Power Hour is recorded, so it will be on YouTube shortly thereafter. You'll be able to access it there on YouTube. Use the chat to let us know where you're coming in from, who you are. Maybe your LinkedIn, your LinkedIn, just use the space to connect as well. And then also we are a part of the Atlanta Black Chambers. For those of you who are new to the Power Hour, the Global Opportunities Committee is a part of the Atlanta Black Chambers, and we are focused on opportunities, helping you to identify opportunities all over the world for our members in trade, in partnership, and in investments. We're super excited about some of the things that we're doing, some of the things that we have coming up. And so feel free to lean in. We'll talk a little bit more later about some of our activities. You all know that we're still working pretty hard on our conference that's coming up in October 1st to the 4th. And want to give you guys a big shout out for those of you who have already registered, for those of you who have already put your hat in the ring to participate. That is really, really key, and applaud you for taking the step to connect and build those relationships. And so that's amazing. And if anyone is in here from the East Africa side, I want to give shout out to our folks in East Africa. We'll be connecting live from East Africa next week. So we're super excited to meet some of the folks out there in Kenya, in Nairobi, as we go out to that with our delegation. So let's just get right in. We're gonna just talk a little bit about today about unlocking opportunities in networks. And when you think about networking and when you think about relationships, it's usually the bedrock of everything that we do. And if you don't have relationships, if you don't have access to people. Sometimes it can actually hold you back, and that's one of the reasons we created the Global Opportunities Committee, is to build a strong network of people around the world so that you can actually have access. It's a platform. So if you're not interested in doing 10, 40 countries, you don't have to do that. It's all good. You can just pick one, but we are providing the platform for you so you can have better choices, better options, and you can have better access to people and to opportunities. So let me bring my guest up here, Mr. Jerome Hutchinson Jr. himself, founder of ICABA. He's a chief servant officer, and I think the first time that I heard that, I actually heard that from him, and he explained that to me, why he called himself the chief servant officer. I'll let him explain that to you. But morning, Hutch. Thank you for coming in. Welcome to the Power Hour, sir.
I'm glad to be here and very excited about all the great work that you're doing, as well as the entire ABC and GOC.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, we always say we know you, but the folks don't. So we probably should start there and tell the folks who you are, what it is that you do, and we can get rocking with this.
Okay. Well, as Ricardo indicated, I am the founder and chief servant officer for the ICABA World Network, which began in 2009 and since then has grown to over 13,000 members and followers who are all committed to connecting and collaborating to elevate the success of Black professionals and entrepreneurs worldwide. We've built a thriving and trusted global success or collaborative success ecosystem. Let me say that one more time as I'm kind of messed it up a little bit. But we have built a trusted and a thriving collaborative success ecosystem worldwide, bringing together those of us of color who are committed to elevating the culture by advancing wealth creation and also our leadership presence worldwide. So we're really excited about this hour of power. We're really excited about the overall initiative. And I'm going to take just a little bit of credit for where we are because before Ricardo landed in Atlanta, he was here in Fort Lauderdale. And when he told me that he was headed to Atlanta to relocate his company, I told him, I said, well, there's a guy I want to introduce you to there named Melvin Coleman. And I think that you guys will do some great things together. And so from that little seed, from that connection, from that relationship, from that collaboration, that has sprung into what is now GOC and this Go Global Conference. And we're excited to be a part of it last year. We're excited to be a sponsor for this year. And so, guys, connections, collaborations, building community works. It simply works. And that's who I am. That's what I'm about. And looking forward to the rest of this discussion here this morning.
Yeah, no, thank you, Hutch, and that's real. I do remember that, and it's all about the connection. If you had not had that connection, and just mentioning it, just making the plug, who would know? Who knew, right? And that's exactly how it is. So never be afraid to talk about your intentions and some of the things that you're doing, because a connection may just be right in there. One of the things that I find that we're very good at is making connection, Hutch. And this conversation is about unlocking global opportunities to networking and relationship. And we never actually said connection in there, because connection is so easy now. Everybody can exchange a business card and scan a QR code and connect with some folks. But if you could just talk a little bit about what is real networking in the context of what you're doing, and what is the basis of building real relationship? Because after the connection is made, then what? How have you managed to build your relationships? What's the secret? Is there one?
Well, I think that the secret, the value proposition for relationships really is what each of you bring to the table and you share. So it's about value and sharing. And I'll tell it like this. I have a member here, very successful ad agency owner, and her husband own an agency called Cool. And Cool is COOL, and that represents created out of love. And they actually also are both ministers, and they've started a church called the Cool Church. Again, taking that whole, cool being created out of love. But anyway, she came to me one day and asked me, she said, Hutch, you know, I'm really never been good at small talk. And when I go to these events and meet people and so on and so forth, I struggle, in terms of how to engage and carry the conversation forward, to build relationships. And I said, you know what? Um, that is a very easy answer to that. And because I know who you are and the kind of person that you are, being as sincere and authentic that you are, when I tell you this, I think you're going to take it and run with it. So I said, listen, when you meet somebody, it's not about a transaction, a business card. It's really about a connection that leads to a collaboration, and that's built on relationship. And relationships are built on mutual value. And so no one wants to build a relationship with anybody if that person does not express interest in them. And so, one of the key things here in terms of building these relationships, whether we're talking about a one-to-one relationship or whether we're talking about a business relationship or looking at a joint operating agreement, a strategic partnership, a joint venture, trade deal, whatever it is, it's going to start when there is a true, authentic interest in the other and being able to help that other to achieve whatever their objectives are. So that becomes really, key. And so, how do you do that? You simply talk to someone and ask them, who are you? What do you do? What's your interest? And once you begin to hear what they're interested in, what's important to them, what they're trying to accomplish, what their objectives are, the natural follow-up questions will emerge out of that, particularly if you're listening actively and intently, and you're sincerely looking for something that they may say that you may be able to lean into in some way to be able to provide some value in terms of assistance. It could be identifying somebody that they need to meet or a resource that they need for whatever, an opportunity. It could come in many different shapes, forms, and sizes. So the question, as Ricardo asked about building the relationships, that secret sauce is really about sharing value and beginning that sharing of value by expressing interest in that other person and what they do. And there's a saying that says people don't care what you know until you care, okay? Until they know that you care. And so when people understand that they know that you care and you're interested in them, it makes it a whole lot easier to build that relationship going forward.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So who I know that there it takes two to tango, they say, and the relationship is about two people. And it sounds like I should be more interested in the other party and less interested in myself. And a lot of times when two people are establishing a relationship or connecting, it often sounds like that person is more interested in telling you. They always say people love to talk about themselves. That person is interested in telling you about them. So it's like me. Here's what's going on with me, and there's almost no interest in you. How do you actually handle that if you're on I want to talk about both sides, because if you are the recipient of that, how do you what's the advice, and how do you look out for and catch those things? And if you're the giver of that, like how do you be mindful that, hey, you're probably doing too much, you need to lean in, because the relationship is usually, like you said, it's a two-way street, but it's usually about the interest in the other person.
Well, there is no doubt that if someone, we've all had the experience of meeting somebody and they spend all the time just talking about them, and that can be on a personal or a business level. And I would be as bold to say that anybody who has met that kind of person um, can't wait to get away from them. Okay. However, you flip the script and you meet somebody who's genuinely, authentically interested in who you are and what you do and where you went to school or family. And, you start talking about, the things that have gotten you to where you are. And then, whether we talk about family, friends, associates, school, work, and so on and so forth, how many times have you had those conversations and people start sharing who they are, what they've done, where they've been, and so on and so forth, and we make some type of connection? Oh, wait a minute. You used to live so and so. Did you know this person? You used to work for this company. Did you know that person? And these 10 degrees of separation, can quickly melt down to only 1 or 2 degrees of separation. And then you find some commonality. And once you find that commonality, everything begins to grow from there. But if you're not genuinely interested in what somebody else is or who they are and what they're doing, or if they're not genuinely interested in you and what you're doing, it just doesn't work. And you're not going to sit around and listen to somebody who's just going to drone and drone and drone about themselves. And neither would somebody want to do that with you. So I think that there's no doubt that genuine interest in someone else, and there's a whole series. I mean, I've been in sessions and webinars and conferences where there's a whole step of processes you can go through to build those relationships, asking questions to get to know people. But I will tell you this, whether you know all of the various strategies, tactics, tips, best practices or not, if you're genuinely and sincerely interested in somebody, you just start asking a couple of questions, and the natural flow of the human connection will lead you to the next thing. Just listen to what they tell you, and you can ask very simple questions. Tell me a little more about that. Give me an example of what you're talking about. How did that work for you? How did that make you feel? Those are just some basic questions that really get people to talking a little bit more. And again, as I said, as they talk more, you will hear things that will allow you to be able to lean in and to get deeper. And that's where you begin to find that commonality. And that's where the rapport builds. And you walk away. And you know what happens when you walk away from that person? They tell other people, wow, I was talking to Tionia, and Tionia, was really cool people. I really enjoyed talking to her. The funny thing about it is, yeah, you did enjoy talking to her because you did all the talking. And it was all about you. But that's okay because that's what you want. You want to know who you're talking to, and it helps you to determine whether or not, if you're talking to Teresa, if you're talking to Samuel or Paul, that this is somebody who has something of value that I know that I might be able to lean into with what I do to help them. And then, there's this guy named Zig Ziglar, one of the most phenomenal motivational speakers of all time. And he says it quite simply. I get what I want by helping as many people I get what I want out of life by helping as many other people get what they want out of life. So if you take the mindset that I'm going to try to help as many people as I can, guys, the universe will bring it back to you in spades.
Yeah, so I think that's the key message, right? Because it's always about adding value, and most of us sometimes it's difficult for us to find that pathway because we're so into ourselves for the most part, and we talk too much about who we are and what we do and what we can do, as opposed to spending time understanding what can we do for the other person. I want to actually talk a little bit about sort of like they always say like your net worth is your net worth, right? And what you're doing over there in ICABA, and maybe we could talk a little bit about ICABA and just say why did you create, if you can explain what ICABA is and why did you create ICABA in the first place to begin with, and then we'll talk a little bit about should we put a monetary value on our net worth or network and the relationships that we're building, and is it required all the time, and should that actually be there? So it's a two-part question, but let's start with tell us a little bit about ICABA and what made you founded ICABA? What was the genesis of that?
Well, it was really pretty straightforward and simple, and it actually came from when I left Atlanta. So I moved to South Florida from Atlanta. At that time, I was the general sales manager for a radio station that some of you who are in Atlanta may have heard of called V103. And so I got recruited here to South Florida, and my wife had been in private banking. And so as we're moving here, and she was talking to banks, about the opportunity to get a job here in private client. Every bank seemed to want to know, they said, hey, you know what? We love your 17 years of banking experience. We're glad that you have an MBA. You seem to be a really good person, but who do you know? And that last question, who do you know, was an impediment to her finding the opportunity. So long story short, we were able to find a way that we decided would give her access and introduction to a number of people and build a business opportunity. And if it worked out, she would continue with the business opportunity. If not, she would know a whole lot more people, and then she would get back into banking. And it was called Who's Who in Black South Florida. And so we launched that in 2006, and it was phenomenally successful. And the things that we thought that we would do in terms of meeting a number of really great people definitely happened, put her in a great position, if you will, so on and so forth, and decided that we would go ahead and carry forward. Unfortunately, in 2007, when we actually had in April the first event and publication, as we were going toward the second year in November, actually November 2nd of '07, she died following brain surgery. And so as a result of that, a few months later, I'm sorry, after a lot of people were asking if we were going to continue to do what we were doing, I ended up forming ICABA. But I noticed that there were a couple of things that kept happening. We published this really beautiful colored directory of all of these 350 accomplished professionals that we had identified and profiled. But people kept telling me, hey, how do I connect with these people? How do I get in contact with these people? And blah, blah, blah. And so at that time, social media was just really getting going. MySpace was the biggest thing in social media at that particular time. Facebook was beginning to kind of make a little bit of noise, and LinkedIn was just this thing out there. People were wondering, what the heck is a LinkedIn? And so we decided to launch ICABA and to focus on three things: publishing, events, and social media, and creating our own platform. And not to make this into too long a story, that's how we got into ICABA. But the ability to do that was really relationship driven because of the people that were met during the period of time that we were doing the Who's Who in Black South Florida publication. It was those relationships that became the foundation of those 350 to 13,000 now that are in our database. And so and I can begin to tell you different examples of relationships that have been endured, during that time, but it was from that. And so it also came out of the perspective that because of a relationship I had with a woman named Pepper Miller, who was the leading consumer market researcher in the United States for Black consumers out of Chicago, I went to meet with her and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. We've done this. This is what came out of it. And she suggested to me, how to structure it, and we did. But one of the things that came out of that was understanding that relationships. How could we help people to build greater relationships? And so over the years, that has, been the kind of laser focus. And I got to tell you guys, and I've been telling people this a lot in the past couple of years, it never seeks to even amaze myself when people ask me or say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Do you know somebody that can help me do so on and so forth? And today, it almost anything someone asks me about, I know somebody that I can connect them to. And if really I don't have a direct connect, I know somebody that I can connect them to who has a direct connect. And that is very powerful. It is very valuable. And so building relationships, you have to be intentional about it. It's not the kind of thing where, you meet somebody and you get a business card and we do this, oh yeah, let's get together, let's have this or do that. And you never follow up. You never send them a follow-up email. You never schedule a follow-up lunch or dinner or go play golf or go take a walk together, whatever it may be that both of you might, have a commonality about. And you don't find out what their interests are. One of the best ways I can tell you that taught me the value of relationships was a relationship that I ended up monetizing for a CPA. I met this guy when I was going through Leadership Louisville in my hometown. And I was launching at that time Kentucky's first Black-owned television station, and I was raising the money for it. And he was helping me. And after we met during our Leadership Louisville class, I already had a CPA at the time. But he would send me information, and tell you how far back this goes. He was faxing me information. Okay, so this goes back a couple of days. And so what ended up happening was he'd see some information about capital raising for TV stations or anything that's related to broadcasting in general. He just shoot me a fax and put on there, hey, Hutch, saw this, thought you might enjoy it, and boom, got the facts out to me. Probably mad his secretary to do it. He probably didn't have to write it. But the bottom line was I was top of mind for him. And so when we started the station and started up, guess who became my CPA? He became my CPA because I knew if this guy wasn't working for me and he was taking this kind of effort to put stuff in front of me that's going to be of value to me, that once he started working for us, that was going to be, really a major asset. And so he was showing value though, and he was showing value without any knowledge or expectation of what may come out of it. But he knew that the more people that he helped, that the more opportunities for him to get what he's looking for would happen. So building that value structure and being intentional, purposeful about building relationships, finding out what people need, want, and all those kind of things, and just finding something that you can add to that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful story, and I applaud you for taking the step to build this network. So ICABA today is how old is ICABA today?
It is 15 years. And let me say one other real thing real quick. One of the things that I also understood early on, and it's even more relevant today, I've built a collaborative success ecosystem. And all of those worlds is spelled ICABA. I saw somebody was asking how you spell it. And it's actually an acronym for Identify, Connect, Activate the Black Accomplished. So that's what ICABA actually stands for. Identify, Connect, Activate the Black Accomplished, ICABA. But going back to what I was about to say was that I pray every day. And part of my prayer is this: God bless me to live a life and leave a legacy of significance. That's part of my daily prayer. Significance, success. Almost everybody wants to be successful. Not everybody wants to be significant. Being significant is a function of success, but it's not about you, it's about others. Significance is what you do for other people. So as I looked at ICABA, I said, hey, if I can help people, in terms of what I know and who I can connect them with, that's great. But if I can build a platform that allows others who in the platform to share their contacts, to share their knowledge, to share their opportunities with each other, I will then have built an ecosystem, and that will be truly significant. And so I've tried to take, and I think we're definitely, succeeding at it, what I'm able to do in terms of who I've been able to connect with by connecting those folks to each other as well, not just trying to keep them within my own circle. So whether, I'm able to connect somebody, they can now go to our platform. We have our own, if you will, we call LinkedIn, where you can go to our community platform and connect to people and be able then to really have a true ecosystem. So anyway, I just wanted to take it just from me and put it into a more systemic, if you will, growing, living, if you will, ecosystem than just one person.
Wow, that's amazing. And if you can just put in the chat, Hutch, I know people probably are thinking, how do we find ICABA? They may already been Googling it, but just the link in the chat, and how can people be a part of that network? Because you did mention, did I hear you say about 13,000 folks into the ICABA system, ICABA sort of ecosystem that you built?
Yeah, those are members and followers, and we're in the process, as from a business standpoint, and we are a for-profit business of converting all of our. Well, we would like to say we convert all of them, but we know you never get everybody. But we're in the process of converting as many as our followers into full-fledged members, and so and obviously bringing others on board. But I'm putting into the chat right now the information that you just asked me in terms of the website, and people can go to learn a little bit more about who we are, and love to have you, sign up and be a part of it. So I'm putting it in right now.
Awesome, awesome. And I know we are going to be, so GOC and ICABA, we've been building our relationship, and we're going to be doing some stuff together. As I think we're going to be putting a page on ICABA, because ICABA is set up where we can actually have pages for organizations, and and companies, and we're going to be having a page on ICABA where our GOC members can then interact with ICABA members and continue to build the relationship. I want to ask, how much is too much when you're thinking about building relationship? Because everybody will tell you that they're busy, everybody will tell you that they don't have time, and they need to kind of be strategic in their relationship building. At what point do you step back or step away, Hutch? You're on mute.
I'll tell you like this. Early in my business career, someone told me, gave me an axiom about bankers. And the axiom was simply that bankers are your best friend until you don't have any money. So a banker is the kind of guy they say that will give you an umbrella when things are going well, and when things start to rain, they take the umbrella back. But we have to understand the bankers are in the business of loaning money and making money off those loans. And we all know that if you've ever loaned anybody any money, okay, that you don't loan people money that you really don't think are going to give it back to you, or when you loan it to them, you just decide that, hey, that money is gone, which somebody told me a long time ago. You loan some friend of money, you just give it to them because you don't worry about it coming back or you're in a problem. But here's the point I was getting to. So as you were asking about, the whole relationship thing and so on and so forth, and whether you have time for it. What is the first thing that most people do when they're trying to raise money, get a loan for a business, trying to get a job, trying to find something that they are applying for, trying to be a part of? You try to find somebody that you know who is connected to that opportunity that can help move your thing along. Okay, you know anybody that work at the company I'm trying to apply for? Do you know anybody at the bank that you could tell me that I should talk to? So in the same vein that, with the bankers, okay, as it relates to, they say that the time to build your relationship with a banker is when you do not need money. Most people go to the bank when they need money. That is the wrong time to start building the relationship. You want to build that relationship when, you're either thinking about starting the business, and talk to that banker. Say, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. I'm not trying to borrow any money right now, but maybe I might need some later on. But really, I like to get your expertise. I like to get your knowledge. Maybe you know somebody in this space. Maybe you know something about this space. Well, you do that. And then let's say 6 months later, you launch the business. And let's say a year later, the business is up and it's doing well and you need to expand. So now you need some working capital. So if you're that person who has been talking to this banker from the point that you had the idea, keeping them abreast and having conversations with them to the point that you got to the point that you need working capital, now you need to go back to that banker and ask them get that working capital. Or if you're the person who never talked to the banker, they now, a year and a half, 2 years later, they need working capital for their business, and they walk in the bank and they say, hey, I need to talk to Mr. Banker so I can get a working capital loan. Who do you think is probably going to have the edge in getting that loan? If it were you, who would you feel most comfortable with? Who would you feel that you know something about what they're doing? You know something about who they are. You've seen their journey. So the point that I'm making to you is that it is never too early to start, and you're never too busy. Because if you're in the business of trying to grow your business and build your business, building relationships is something you've got to be doing every day, day in and day out, because you've got to build those relationships before you need them. You cannot wait until you need the relationships to go out and start building them.
Yeah, make a friend before you need a friend, right? That's interesting. So I want to go back to the question around sort of the worth of the relationship. At what point do you determine that this relationship isn't worth it? And we're going to drop a poll in the chat. I would love to see you guys' thoughts on what do you think about some of the questions that we're asking. And I want to talk a little bit about that Hutch. Talk to me about this network is your net worth, and therefore you've got to be able to put a value on the relationship. And yes, I know that some relationships are invaluable. I mean, you can't put a price on it, but how do you actually measure those relationships to get to, if you are really trying to then establish a net worth with the TH? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard. You're asking me that
Yes,
question.
yes, yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Part of it, I was looking at the survey, so I'm sorry. I would say that um, the matter of fact, let me get you to kind of restate that question again, because I really I was looking
Yeah,
at this.
I was talking about net worth. How do you put a value on the relationship? You know, so sort of what's the net worth of the relationship? How do you value say, you know, they always say network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And so at what point in time do you measure, is it valuable enough for me to continue, or for me to go after ones that are more valuable? Everybody wants to be in a relationship with a billionaire because they feel like, oh, that's where the value is. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, I can. And I'm sorry that I got a little distracted there. And it's so funny, I got distracted on the question that asked about the worth of your value of relationships, which is exactly what you were talking about. And,
Right.
and I would say it's definitely invaluable. And about your, building your net worth or building your network in order to increase your net worth. Sir Richard Branson. So those of you who are not familiar with that name, Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records, Virgin Cruises. I mean, this is one of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, billionaire, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things he says is that, people who work for a living are always looking for work. People who build wealth are always looking for relationships. When you take a look at the systemic and institutionalized efforts that go on in society, um, whether you're talking about starting even with kids in preschool, all the way through, college and graduate schools, and on beyond into um, post, if you will, adult life when you become out of college and you're working to build your life going forward. There are so many relationships that are driven by the development of organizations, institutions, and other ways of bringing people together with the sole purpose of building relationships. People who have money, the reason they put their kids in certain schools is not just because the school has a good a track record of education. It's because who they know they're going to be sitting in that classroom with. And so if you take a look at Kathy, if you take a look at Michelle, you take a look at Joe, and put Al into a 12-year program of building relationships from the first grade through the 12th grade, and you extend that into college and get into the right fraternities. And then after you come out of school and you begin to your profession, you get into certain organizations. White folks know, and they've been doing it for years, that if we put you into the right track and put you on this train on the track, and you're touching all these bases along the way, when you need those relationships, okay, they will be there, that you will be able to call back on these people, because somebody you went to school with, at Columbia, is somebody now running the bank. Somebody that you went to school with at Harvard is now a judge, and you may have a legal situation. And so what I'm just saying is the net worth is, I think we've all heard the saying about your net worth is a function of the 10 people you most spend time with. Okay. If you haven't heard that, well, then it is something good to hear. Spend some time right now, if you've never done it, and think about who are the 10 people that you spend the most time with. And what the experts will tell you is that your success in life will mirror those people. And so if you're spending time with people who are where you are today, and those are the people who you spend most of the time with, your growth is going to be somewhat stunted. You need to spend some time with people who are where you want to be and where you want to go, because it's going to be somewhat organic. It's going to be somewhat, if you will, uh, your ability to tap into how they got to where they are, who they are, and what they do to help you to grow from where you are to where you want to be and who you want to be. And so your net worth, again, gets tied back to your circle of influence into your network. And so who have you spent your time with? Who have you cultivated relationships with that you're able to be a value to them and they're able to be a value to you is totally tied to your net worth. Okay? Birds of a feather flock together. And that's an old phrase that people have heard. And I know one of the things I've learned from my Caribbean brothers and sisters is that there are great phrases, and I bet you there's one that probably Ricardo probably knows there's something similar to they may say in the Caribbean about like birds of a feather flock together. That's not a Caribbean phrase, but I'm sure there's a phrase in the Caribbean that's a very similar, or a phrase that comes out of African proverbs that is very similar to that. But the bottom line is we're all well, I should say we are all a product of those who we spend time with.
Yeah. That's profound, and we're going to start asking Hutch some of your questions. So if you have any questions for Hutch, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand because we'd love to take it. But I'm doing this poll, and then we're looking at this poll, and we're seeing where the question. And I'm going to launch the I'm going to end the poll. If you haven't done it yet, I'll give you a quick second to do it before we end it. But one of the main questions in the poll, Hutch, was around the obstacle to collaboration. And like, why is it that if the relationship is there, what is the hindrance? What is causing the lack of collaboration? What's the obstacle? And I know we had given some options on, trust and communication, connectivity, and people say all of the above. We have probably 50%. I'm going to launch a poll now, and so that you all can see the results. 50% of folks think that it's all the above. The matter of trust, this matter of communication and connectivity, all the above. What do you think the reason for that is? Why is it that we have such an issue with collaborating? If the relationship is there, if the relationship is working, is the collaboration a function of the relationship?
Well, I'd have to say that, the things where we're looking at here, and I see the survey results that you've got here, trust, then all of the above was the highest. But one of the interesting things about us and our culture as it relates to um, building relationships and everything, a lot of it has to do with security and self. Um, your view of self and um, your self value. And so, one of the things that, because this is a global group, and I know we've got people here from different countries and different nationalities, but we all kind of, if you will, have a commonality in terms of, our ancestry. But blacks in America have some different experiences than blacks in Africa or blacks in the Caribbean, and so on and so forth. I even hear sometimes from my Caribbean brothers and sisters like, we just don't understand why you guys are not doing better in this great country and all the opportunities that you have here. And you guys talk about racism, like, man, screw some racism. I'm just gonna come over here and do the thing and make money. And it is correct. But there's one of the things that I've shared with my Caribbean brothers and sisters, and it would apply probably to African brothers and sisters. And that is that, when you're in your country that's not America, um, you're not really, get outside the caste system, because there's more, if you will, classism than racism in most other countries. But the difference here is that um, you see people that look like you who are in charge of things. They're wealthy. They may be running government. They may be, the store owner on in the neighborhood, as well as being the banker. But they look like you. Okay, so you don't have a mental, if you will, block that sometimes is very prevalent in Black community in the United States, where the people who are in charge don't look like you, you know. And matter of fact, you know, the reason that you can enslave somebody, when you go back to slavery and understand how could a plantation have 200 slaves with a family living in the big house with only maybe say 10 people in the family and be safe? How could you give your kid to someone to nurse your child who you're enslaving them, beating them, killing them, torturing them, selling them? How could you have that same, you know, people shave you in the morning with a razor blade up to your neck and not cut you and kill you? Because it's what's done up here, done to the mind, the brainwashing that goes on. And so what I'm getting at is this. As we talk about trust, part of the problems that we have in America is that Black people in America were definitely brainwashed, and many of us have overcome that, but there's still those of us who haven't. And even those who may think they've overcome it still have to deal with the challenges of that sometimes because it shows up in different ways. But we're definitely much further beyond it than we've ever been before, and you know, we're going to get there. But the point that I'm making is that we don't necessarily have the value of each other because we were taught that we're not of value. I mean, the three-fifths compromise, you guys may or may not be familiar with that, but it was actually written in the United States Constitution that a Black person was three-fifths the value of a white person. I mean, it was written in the Constitution that we were only three-fifths of a value of a white person. And so as we have this thing with trust, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't trust yourself and you've been told not to believe anybody that looks like you has any value, it's really hard for you to trust. And over years, you know, those things kind of manifest itself. Communication, the ability to be able to connect, all those things that get kind of tied to it. But however, there's a shift going on in this world, and people of color are finding each other, and we're finding that that which binds us is much greater than those things that separate us. Common goals, shared objectives, okay, a commonality of ancestry. Even with all the stuff that has gone on over the years, when we get together, we realize when I was in South Africa with my daughters, you know, a few years ago, and we were walking through the streets of one of the neighborhoods with our tour guide. One of the things he said, you know, I said, well, Dad, and I looked at my daughter, I said, it sounds like home, you know, the dynamic that he was describing. And in terms of how people were interacting and engaging with each other. And the truth of the matter is, we are a heck of more alike than we are different. And so part of what needs to happen is what you guys are doing. And that's why this is so powerful. Because when people meet and talk and share, that's when we find out that we are so much more alike than we may possibly be different. So, what does that mean? That we have to be conscious and intentional about creating what I like to talk about are connections and collisions. Those times that brings us together and we collide with one another and realize, wow, you know, you're trying to do this and we're trying to do that too. We've got Africans who want to reach out to us in America. And, you know, there's times that I know from talking to my African brothers and sisters that sometimes you've met those who, you know, they've listened to the crap and they bought into some of the stereotypes that America has fed us, thinking that our African brothers and sisters don't have anything of value, which is so crazy that because white folks have been over getting all the value out of Africa for centuries and still continue to do that, the Chinese and so on and so forth. But we've got great value and we've got people who are doing great things. And so now through groups like GOC, through ICABA, as we're getting to know each other better, we're realizing the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is that our value is exponentially greater when we are operating from shared objectives and common goals, and we're working in a collaborative way. When we take our resources, our talent, our expertise, and our knowledge and our experiences and begin to share them and do them in a way that allows us to be open and free about that, there is no stopping us from where we want to go. But we do have to recognize is that things like trust and communication amongst us, that there has been a very defined, specific, consistent, persistent effort to keep us apart. And we have to know that and be that much more determined that we are going to come together and work together. I don't have to like everything about you. You don't have to like everything about me. We don't have to have dinner every Friday night or whatever, but we have a common purpose. We have shared objectives, and it's based on those things that we come together and we work. And then you know what? As we get to know each other, we may actually decide we do want to have dinner on Friday nights together. I go travel together and vacation together. So anyway, I hope I answered the question. I know I got off a little bit, but
No, no, that's powerful, man. And I love how we just sort of bridge that into the positive. Like we have so much more to celebrate than the things that actually holds us back. Because and so this is a really, really great answer. I wanna also just emphasize that, and that's why we started GOC, and that's why I believe you also started ICABA, because whatever you are doing, wherever you are, there are commonalities that we can find across the pond, across the borders, across the waters, and that's what make this whole thing interesting. If you have a question for Hutch, would be more than happy to have you ask. But Hutch, I want to ask you, what is it that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk to our audience today about?
well, I'd love to, share a little bit about our Black Professionals Month. And I know we got about, looks like 5 minutes left here. And so in 2021, we started an initiative called Black Professionals Month, which is a global celebration of Black professional excellence. Our three pillars and objectives are showcasing Black excellence, advancing wealth creation, and elevating our leadership presence worldwide. And it's something that is kind of interesting from the perspective that in 2020, there was such a outpouring and reactive response to the George Floyd murder in America. And companies and other folks just basically were feeling guilty and recognizing that the injustices, that were manifesting what happened to Floyd, uh, really, if you will, were pervasive through all kind of different places in society and the economy. And so people started, really ratcheting up DEI efforts. But even then, when that happened, one of the things that I recognized was that, when you look back at the history, we have these kind of, ups and downs where it comes to what I call white folks guilt, and so you get it for a little while, and then it's kind of like, oh, we've done enough for them. We don't need to do anymore. They're good. It's kind of like when Obama got elected. All of a sudden, people say, oh, well, racism is dead in America. No, a matter of fact, all you do is turn the page, and the next day the Tea Party showed up, with the racist movement that always had been there underground. But now, because we had a black president, they were like, wait a minute, we can't have this. And but the bottom line I'm getting to is this. Um, when we've gotten to now where we are with Donald Trump and how they're just destroying as much as they can anything that is there to create equity, anything that is there to create fairness in the workplace and in society. They are determined to try to take us back. And so now DEI is failing. Okay. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Trump administration just did a presidential executive order to take DEI out of AI. Okay. And so if you're doing business with the federal government, they're trying to take just anything that references DEI out of AI. Okay. That's how deep and how far this thing, is going, and so on and so forth. But here's the thing. DEI, when DEI is not enough, collaborate to elevate. And I was been preaching that for forever. We cannot allow ourselves to be, roller coaster ride up and down based on the whims of what somebody is going to allow us to be able to do. We have to take the proactive, strategic, and the affirmative steps to recognize our value, to recognize our strength by collaborating with one another. And when you do that, you don't need somebody else to do it for you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it to you like this. It's a great story. Years ago, when I was a college student, I got an internship on Capitol Hill. And there was a congressman named John Conyers. He has since passed. But during that time, I went to meet with Congressman Conyers because at this particular time, there was this legislation and movement to make Dr. King's birthday a national holiday. So obviously you know that it is now, but this was before we got it done. And as a college student at the University of Louisville, we had a program coming up in February of that year. This was the summer of 2000, or I guess it was 1988. But anyway, I forget the year. But the point being, it was the summer, and then the following February, we were going to have this event for Dr. King's birthday. And so I was asking Congressman Connors to come speak. And so I got a chance to come to his office and make the pitch. And he said, "Well, young man, I'm already committed, so I can't come." He said, "But I want to leave you with something. And it's something I never forget. And it's been a bedrock of my own philosophical leanings going forward. And I want you to listen carefully to what Congressman Connors said to me, and then take this and extrapolate it into what we do going forward." He said, "Young man, if Black folks make Dr. King's birthday a holy day, we don't ever have to worry about white folks making it a holiday." Simply put, if we value ourselves to the point that we treat us with honor and respect and trust and lean into being able to share and give value and help one another, we don't need somebody else helping us because we've got everything that we need, but we have to activate it. And that's the reason why ICABA exists. Identify, connect, but here comes that word, activate the Black accomplished. Okay? So guys, we have everything that we need. Okay? And also, I got to also leave this with you. In terms of the question, we must be strategic and long-term in our thinking. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we have, because when somebody is hungry today, they really don't want to hear that, hey, you know what? Let's figure out how, we can grow some food and sell it and make money. Because you're just like, man, will you just give me something to eat right now? And that's one of the reasons why ICABA focuses on working with those who are doing well to do better, because we have to build capacity. We have to build relationships and ecosystems with people who are doing well, who have the luxury, so to speak, of not worrying about what they're going to eat today, but increasing the ability to feed a culture for a lifetime, who are not worried about whether they're going to make mortgage today, but they can put their money into something that's going to grow, that's going to be the bank giving out mortgages tomorrow. We have got to begin to stop thinking about what is in front of us, but what is around the corner, down the street, and coming up generations later. And it's biblical. The Bible tells us, for we are to leave a legacy, an inheritance for our children's children. And we never will do that. We won't. I'm convinced we will never do that in mass as a culture, not individually, but as a culture, until we begin to really maximize ourselves, our value, share that, and be strategic and long-term in the approach.
Powerful, powerful. Know what your word. I see Jenna, I see your hand is up. We're 2 minutes over the hour, but the power has to continue. I can give you really 2 seconds to ask your question, because I think we'd love to have Hutch just respond and provide his last bit of advice to us before we head out of here. Jonah, go ahead.
Yes, 2 seconds. So how could a person build relationships with individuals that have a higher net worth to help them accomplish some goals? Thank you.
Well, that's a really, really great question. And one of the things that you will find is that everybody puts their pants leg on one at a time, and everybody pulls their skirt up, over their two legs at the same time. So the point I'm making is that no one is better than anybody else. We're all, if you will, the same. Some people have more in certain areas, but more than likely that person has had their own, if you will, growth experience. They didn't, you see them now, but you don't know where they were then, okay, before they got to where they are now. And so what happens is when you meet somebody who has accomplished something, what you will find is that generally when people meet them, it's usually like, what can you do for me? Okay, how can I get to know you so that you can help me out? Well, just think if you said to that person, hey, Ricardo, how can I be of some help to you? I really admire what you're doing. I would love to learn more about you. I'd love to learn more about what you do because I'm trying to get there as well. I'm going to tell you guys, the vast majority of people who I know who are successful and uber successful, they are very open to people with that kind of approach. Okay. And one of the things that we do in helping mentoring relationships is letting that mentee know people want to help, they want to give back. What you have to also know that because in our community and our culture, those who are successful, they got people pulling on them all the time. Hey, you're the person in the family that everybody goes to when they need something. You're the person in the church that everybody thinks should be paying all the bills. You're the person that you get the point that I'm making. So when they meet somebody who establishes their relationship based upon respect for who they are and what they do, and says to them, hey, look, I'd like to try to get there too. And if I can do something to be of value to you, let me know how I can help you. Because I would just love to be able to spend some time with you at whatever time you may have. It may be a Zoom call, it may be a phone call, whatever it is. But I'm willing to also make myself available. And while I don't have everything that you have, I'm willing to use my time, talent, and expertise to assist. And if there's something that you can do that I can be of value to, let me know I need to be a part of it. Let me just think about if someone said that to you, what your response would be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jerome, Hutch, everybody, I really, really want to thank you for this opportunity. Your last bit of advice, we are way over, but guys, we put a ton of things in the chat. Make sure you download it. And the fact that you're still sticking with us, we really value that. But we really have to jump here. But Hutch, your last bit of advice, if you could say anything to the folks who are here, just obviously what you've said is a great, great wealth of advice that you've already dropped. Anything else that you could say? What is it going to be for our people here all over the world? Dubai is here, Germany's in the house, South Africa is in the house. I see the names. Mauritius was here. I see them all here. What do you say to our folks here in Atlanta, everywhere in the world that's listening to you?
I would simply say this to you. With God, all things are possible. Trust in the Lord. Lean not to thine own understanding, and he will guide your paths. Because no matter what we go through, we must not only know our value, but we need to know whose we are. And we need a higher power that we are connected to cover those things that we can't. And when we recognize that when we fall short, when we feel weak and inadequate, that is the perfect time to allow God to step in and be God. Because great people that I've met, the vast majority of them would tell you the exact same thing. They did not accomplish what they did on their own. God stepped in when they were inadequate, when they didn't have enough money, when they didn't have enough of whatever they needed to get there. Okay? Because when you look at God's track record, it's always been making somebody who's unlikely a hero, somebody who's unlikely great, somebody who seemed to be totally incapable of anything, and they end up doing everything. So I will leave you with that, and that is, with God, all things are possible. And the relationship that you should have at the top of your relationship hierarchy, that pyramid at the very top should be the relationship with our Father.
Fantastic, fantastic. And folks, with that comes the end of the Power Hour. The hour actually is over, but the power continues. Thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll definitely see you next week. Thank you so much, guys. Hutch, thank you for coming through. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Of the Atlanta Black Chamber. The Chamber of the Year.
Atlanta is rocking. Go Global Conference is doing the things, eh?
And I think the most incredible thing to take actually home is the black excellence.
So kudos to GOC for a job well done. I think this is just the beginning of greater and better things to come.
There is a black business.
All right, amazing. Thank you, guys. We'll be in touch. See you next week.